The stage is being set for the much-anticipated debate between US President Donald Trump and his challenger, the Democratic candidate, Joe Biden. If you're up at 3 a.m. tomorrow, and trust me, you're going to want to be, you can watch it right here on Newzroom Afrika. Our senior political reporter, Ziyanda Ngcobo, joins us now to give us the lowdown on what to expect. Ziyanda, good evening to you. I mean, if you look at the way this campaign has played out so far, I'd expect fireworks tomorrow morning.
Most certainly, Stephen. And of course, we know that Donald Trump is already on the back foot after the New York Times was running with that story that he's only paid $750 in tax. And so we're expecting Joe Biden to go all the way in when it comes to that. We're also expecting Biden to actually hit out at Trump for how he's handled the COVID-19 crisis. I mean, for all intents and purposes, the conservatives haven't really taken the, the pandemic seriously. They've tried to blame the spread of the virus on China. They've made promises about a vaccine coming out before the election, despite medical experts saying that this is not possible. But on the other hand, we're also expecting Trump to also, hit below the belt and actually go personal when it comes to Biden. We know that his son had a drug addiction and it affected, relations with another country. But also we're expecting a lot of discussion about how, especially protests in America, when you look at violence in American cities, which is one of the topics that's expected to be discussed. George Floyd, I mean, the conservatives have always said that this radical left, their protests always end in violence. And so it's definitely expected to be a showdown and definitely a circus of sorts, actually, Stephen.
Well, I mean, you could say that about American politics for quite some time. Okay, so there'll be personal issues.
Yes.
And I imagine one of the questions for me is whether Joe Biden sort of tries to stay above it if it's possible with Trump. What are the substantive issues? I mean, we've seen the tensions around race in the United States flaring up. And I mean, Trump has sort of pushed that very hard.
He certainly has. I mean, there's 6 topics that are up for debate, but of course they can change. Chris Wallace, who's actually going to be moderating the debate, he actually had the discretion to choose the topics, and amongst the topics is their records in office, COVID-19, and the Supreme Court vacancy. Now, this is very important, Stephen, because following the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, now we know that Amy, Coney Barrett, who is a staunch conservative, I mean, she's a protege of Antonin Scalia, who was always actually butting heads with Ginsburg, is now going to be elected into the Supreme Court. Now, the reason why this is important is, one, Donald Trump has said that he cannot guarantee that he would give a peaceful transfer of power if he loses. So if this result is tight and it needs to go to the Supreme Court, which the judicial system is different to ours in South Africa, essentially Donald Trump would rely on the conservatives within the Supreme Court to actually back him in this regard. It would be a 6-3, weighting in that regard. So that's why this is important. And actually, we're expecting Biden to also hit out at that you all of a sudden, just before an election, just days before an election, you choose to actually, nominate for a lifetime. I mean, Conant is actually Coney Barrett rather, she's only 48, and they don't have a limit to the terms in the Supreme Court. So she could be there for the next 40 years pushing a conservative agenda within the Supreme Court.
47 is very young, Ziyanda, let's be very clear. So there's a lot going on in the United States. Part of it is around structure. We saw that in the 2016 election. And I mean, again, the popular vote is often overshadowed by the Electoral College. Are there many floating voters left in the United States? I don't know if there's anyone in the world who hasn't made up their mind about which side they're on when it comes to Donald Trump.
Well, if you speak to the experts, they'll tell you that the margin is very, very small, Stephen. And it speaks to the significance of these debates, because we know that there are already reports of many American voters having cast their ballots already via mail. And of course, we know that this has already been a bone of contention, because Donald Trump is already insinuating that voting by mail, that a foreign country, and experts will tell you that Trump is insinuating that China could actually try and rig the vote, and he's almost setting the ground for when or if he loses, right? But the trick here is that the way in which Americans go about their voting is controlled by each state. There's no IEC in America per se. So when it comes to the margin of how many people could sway their vote, I think it's quite small. This is the first of 3, presidential election debates, and really that's where I think, those are the people rather that I think Biden and Trump will try and target, given the fact that across the board it's said that this is going to be quite a tight and hotly contested election.
Zinda Ngcobo, thanks very much indeed, senior political reporter. And of course, you'll be able to watch that from 3 o'clock tomorrow morning right here. When it finishes at around 4:30, you'll see all sorts of analysis and guests talking about that. So we'll bring you that debate live at that starting time again from 3 a.m. tomorrow morning. Our anchor, Michelle Craig, will be with you with our politics editor, Spoo Ngawa, as well as a panel of guests to unpack and analyse the debate from 4:30 a.m. So